Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Welcome back, everybody. It's ML Elrick of the Detroit Free Press coming to you from WJR's East English Village Bureau here in Detroit's beautiful East Side. You've been listening to Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, among others, talking about a situation that we want to talk about here, and that is your ability to vote. And there's all kinds of complications that people are facing here, including will their ballots get there in time? Will their ballots be counted? What's the best way to do this? And there's been some movement in the legislature. Now, you may recall from many, many elections that we've had problems in the city of Detroit in particular getting the correct vote counts, because you can't do recounts if the number recorded at the polling place doesn't match the number of ballots found in the box. It's very frustrating. Lawmakers have been trying to get that fixed for years. That is not one of the things that's been fixed. There's been a very minor change, and that is that the Michigan State Senate has approved allowing clerks to begin processing absentee ballots a few hours earlier than normal, and that should help get votes counted sooner than normal, which rarely is very soon. But Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson has been pushing for more reforms, and here's what she had to say about what's already come through the Senate and what she thinks needs to happen next.
For our legislature and our federal government, we do need more support. We need to update our laws here in Michigan to ensure, among other things, that ballots sent prior to Election Day, but postmarked as such, but received after Election Day, perhaps a day or two after Election Day, still count, because no voter should be disenfranchised due to delays in the Postal Service.
Now, even this change that was just passed in the Senate that will allow clerks to begin counting ballots earlier, actually, they're not allowed to do that because this still has to go through the House. If it goes through the House, it's almost assured that the governor will sign it. But even this very small change that should help us improve the way we process ballots here in the state of Michigan is still in limbo. And so today, the governor and the Secretary of State had the press conference to say, we are glad that the Senate took action, but we think there's a lot more that needs to be done. We'd like to know what you think needs to be done, if anything. Please give us a call here at WJR. I believe it's 1-800-957. Excuse me. You know what? Let me get that number for you, because I want you to call the right number. I don't want you guys ordering pizzas here when we're trying to get you to dial in to WJR. It's 1-800-859-0957. That's 1-800-859-0WJR. Sorry for some confusion on the number. Frankly, I never call here. I answer the calls. So it's sort of like being asked your home number. You're never really sure what it is because you don't dial it that often. Or just between you and me, if you live in a house like mine, you keep calling home, but nobody answers it because they think it's a pollster, it's a credit reporting agency, or it's CVS reminding you to come and pick up whatever pills it is that they're sitting on the shelf. But we appreciate you weighing in on this issue. Mike in Farmington Hills, what's on your mind this afternoon?
Yeah. Are you there?
Yes, sir. Welcome to the Guy Gordon Show. Guy just ran to the bathroom.
Yeah,
I'm Mike Elrick.
How you doing, ML?
Good.
My comment says we need to do what we can to expedite the counting of ballots. I think it's in the public interest to do so. If there's legislation that could be agreed upon that would accomplish that task, we should be doing it. There should not be anything impediment in the way of counting the ballots. So I want to do what we can to make sure that those ballots are counted in an expeditious manner without impacting any issues regarding suppression or party affiliation, all that nonsense. Just count the ballots as soon as we can.
So, Mike, how do you feel about the ballots that arrive after the polls have closed? Because we've heard about post offices having ballots stacked up that weren't delivered to the clerks before 8 p.m. on Election Day, and under current law, they can't be voted. Do you think there should be some changes in the law that will allow those ballots to also be included in the final count?
I think there should be a time period expiration where those ballots are valid in that particular election. So I'm not for counting ballots for 7 to 8 days later. I mean, the people should know that the ballots should be in the mail, given 3 to 4 days before the election. They arrive the day of the election, it should be counted. Does that answer your question? I don't know.
No, that does. One quick follow-up with you, Mike, before we take a break for traffic. What if the ballot is postmarked by election day, but isn't received by the clerk until the next day due to no fault whatsoever of the voter?
Again, I don't want to get in a situation where people can, have some type of argument that they should postmark, they should be counted 2 days later and all that. They don't arrive on election day, it shouldn't be counted.
Okay, fair enough, Mike. You couldn't be more clear, and I appreciate you giving us a call here on the Guy Gordon Show. We're going to take a break to go to Michael Stetz to see what's happening on the road. We'll give you a little bit of news, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a ballot snafu that left Vice President Mike Pence off some ballots that were sent to Michigan voters. We'll tell you what happened there and what the state plans to do about it.
On M59 eastbound between Saginaw Street and North Perry Street, that part of
the Big Ten and the ballot one.
We're good with those?
Yep, he's got them in the system.
Okay, great.
Yeah, when he's done with traffic, he'll come in and chat with you about them. If you want us to chit-chat with you, just let us know.
Okay. It looks like we got a lot of calls stacked up, so
we do.
So we'll let them jump in, and feel free to jump in if somebody's, don't wait for me to invite you. If you hear somebody that you want to, this one, we want to vote like they do in Mexico. That one feels like something we could all weigh in on, depending on what they mean by that. That sounds like a potential smart.
He did elaborate with me. I just was putting the comment briefly there for you.
Okay. So. Well, I assume the way they vote in Mexico is with a gun at your back, but I may be wrong about that. I don't want to make any assumptions about our amigos on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, so
they paid for it.
So ML, what I did is I've got that cut of Whitmer saying she wants to get back to normal like everyone else in regards of the Big Ten, and then I cut Benson into 2 bites. One where she talks about the ballots specifically, and then there's another one where she talks about how there's going to be scrutiny on the state and what they're doing about it. I'll do what I do for Guy. I'll put them up on my array and I'll number them, and then I'll send you a picture of them, so that way you can, if you're talking, you say, cut 3, cut 4.
Okay, and when you put those up, will they have a little detail about them, or will it just say Whitmer cut 1?
Well, I title them with the detail. So,
okay.
Like that one of Benson that we played, it says Benson requests legislation.
Okay.
The Whitmer cut is called Whitmer on NCAA.
Okay.
And then Benson on false ballots and Benson scrutiny on the state. So,
and what was the false ballots one again?
That's the one where they printed out those, was it 400 ballots you said, Laura?
Where it was, one? Okay, great. We'll go to that one.
The Mike Pence one. Yeah.
We'll go to that one first.
That was where the question originated from, was that story.
Yeah.
Okay. So will I see those in private chat, or will it be somewhere up on down here or something?
Down on the bottom, like where we put the callers up.
Okay.
Mike, where are you putting?
Yeah. I'm going to take a picture. Sorry, my computer froze as I was dumping the.
Okay.
So you'll text that to him?
Yeah, I'll send you a picture.
Okay, and it's 800-859-0957. Okay, so I got lazy reading it, scrolling across the bottom of the screen, and when I went to go look for it, I just assumed it was there. I was like, I probably should have checked that first.
For those watching on Facebook Live, this is the chaos that happens when there's a presser right before the show.
This is why the wizard had that curtain.
Right.
Didn't want you to see what's going on back.
Well, that's what we do. It's like we're inviting you into the control room with us, where it's It's chaos, but we try to make it sound as least chaotic as possible over the air.
Yeah, and frankly, he did get Dorothy back to Kansas, so let's not pile on the wizard.
I was about to say nobody died, but then I remembered the witch, so bad analogy on my part.
Somebody died, nobody cried. Maybe that's it.
That's right.
Somebody melted. I guess there are 2 deaths, right?
Oh yeah, I guess the witch that had the
Her
house.
sister.
Oh, I'm gonna try this here.
The only people who died were the
there
witches.
We go, Mel.
The bad witches, because Glenda, she was all right.
All right. So I'm texting you the picture of my cut sheet. If you can't read it, I can just type them in, but I'm going to text them to you first.
Oh, okay. So, on my phone.
Yeah, I'm going to text. Yeah, does that work for you?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
All right. But if it doesn't get to you, did you want to come in with Benson talking about false ballots, or did you want to set it up?
Yeah. Well, it's not really false ballots, right? It's just a misprint of the name. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let me set that up because I think we should tell people a little bit, and she's basically saying what they're doing about it. So I'll let her pick up that piece of it.
Okay. I'm going to preview it here, just make sure that it sounds all right. Oh, hold on. Let me grab that cut. Where'd it go? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That's not the right one. Uh-oh.
I'm not going to go through and reorder right now, ML, but Judy dropped. She's the only caller.
Judy dropped. Okay. Yeah. If
that
sounds fine.
Still there.
Okay. Yeah. So I've got this. Mike, if we don't have one of them, don't sweat it.
He said, if you don't have it, Mike, don't sweat it. I'm going to try. He's working on it still. Okay. I'm going to try.
It's ironic I grabbed the wrong ballot.
So Benson on false ballots is cut 4. That'll be the first one we go to. So
He's cut 4 will be the first one we go to.
Yeah, if it's available.
Yep, I think he's got that one. I think it's cut 3.
Well, it's number 4 on my. You can't see what he just sent me.
Yeah.
Unless
I think the one that he messed up was cut 3.
Oh, Benson.
Oh, never mind. It's
scrutiny.
cut 4. So he's working on that.
Okay.
All right, I got it.
So I'm just sending you what I'm looking at, Laura. Okay, Mike. So I think we'll go to 4.
We're going to go to 4, Mike.
Okay. He's going to call for it?
Yep. You'll call for it or you want it right as we come back?
No, I'll call for it.
Okay. How long till we come back, Mike? 22 seconds. I'm going to remove myself.
Okay.
This is The Guy Gordon Show on News Talk 760 WJR. Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Welcome back to The Guy Gordon Show. I'm ML Elrick of the Detroit Free Press, filling in for Guy. And we are talking about some problems people overseas and in the military may have trouble filling in their ballots. Yes, there were about 400 ballots sent out to Michiganders living abroad and members of the military that, believe it or not, were missing the name of a very important person. That would be your Vice President, Michael Pence, was not on the ballot under the name of Donald J. Trump. Instead, what people will see is Jeremy Cohen, who is actually the vice presidential candidate of the Libertarian Party. This is very embarrassing to the Secretary of State's office, but they caught it pretty quickly. And not too long ago, this is what Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson had to say about it.
I think you can look for our success of the elections we've had this year. We've got some great protections in place. I think you're talking about a computer glitch that was quickly addressed and fixed as soon as it was brought to our attention, and those voters have since received the correct ballots.
So the danger, I guess, would be if you get 2 ballots in the mail and you don't notice that there's a problem and you vote with one and not the other. One of the things we don't know from the Secretary of State is whether your vote for Donald J. Trump and Jeremy Cohen would count just the same as if you voted for Donald J. Trump and Michael Pence. My guess is that it would, because you really don't vote for the vice president. You vote for the president. Way back when it was Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, you voted for them separately, but that changed a long time ago. I think about the same time they figured out giving people wooden teeth wasn't such a great idea. But again,
ML, I did see that your vote would still count, and most of these ballots were for overseas, the military and overseas.
Okay,
so I don't think any of us would necessarily see this.
No, this is strictly something that's going overseas, and I suspect that if they send you the second ballot, it would have a note that says, "Hey, by the way, disregard the first ballot because we had a little boo-boo there." But if not, it's good to know that whichever one you send in, it's going to count. We want to take your calls today on the Guy Gordon Show. It's 1-800-859-0957, 1-800-859-0WJR. Mike and Laura are keeping things on track. Laura, thanks for that information. Let's check out what Joe has to say about counting ballots. You have some thoughts on when they should be counted. Joe and Goodrich, what's on your mind?
Hey, ML. Hey, Colin, I think we just need to focus on following the existing laws and procedures that we have in place. They've served us well throughout our history. I don't think there's a reason to change them now, understanding that we're going through COVID, but you have the right to vote via mail-in, which I'm not a big fan of, but that's your right. So it should also be your responsibility to make sure that your vote gets there on time.
That's a great point. And one of the things that you heard the governor and the Secretary of State, who are both Democrats, say is whenever you get your ballot completed, send it in. Don't let it sit on the shelf. Get it in right away so that you don't have to miss out. And it turns out that there were a lot of Michiganders, tens of thousands of Michiganders whose votes weren't counted on primary day because they just didn't get to the polls on time. And I think the concern here is that voters are doing what they need to do. Voters are doing what they're supposed to do, but the post office isn't getting this mail delivered on time. So really, whether the law changes or whether it stays the same, the message that I think Joe would agree with is if you're going to vote, get it done. Take care of business. Let's get it out there. Joe, thanks for your call. Tim in Brownstown, what would you like to see happen with balloting in Michigan?
Thanks for taking my call. I would like to see what most countries do. I mean, if you go to Mexico, you want to vote. If you don't have an ID, you don't vote. We're a country that makes it so easy to cheat. We've been doing this for how long? We find cheating all the time. I don't know about you, but I have a 20-year-old at home, and I get more mail every week about ballots, request forms, service requested, and I'm going to keep them all. And at the end, I'm going to maybe call the news and say, look at all this mail I got regarding ballots and maybe requesting a ballot. It's so confusing for everybody. This is going to be a mess. No one's going to know who won come November 4th. It is going to be litigated until I don't know when, but this is going to be a mess.
I think you are looking into the same crystal ball I am, Tim. This is going to take a long time to figure out who won. In the meantime, we're all going to be debating it, probably with not as much information as we need to have a meaningful debate. But in terms of voting like people do in Mexico, you would probably draw the line at, we don't want our ballots in Spanish, right? You're not for that.
No. Well,
okay,
listen, I would like to see, let's change let's make the voting, if it's so hard for everybody, let's make it on a weekend. Start at 6 a.m. Saturday and we end Sunday at 8 p.m. That way everybody's off, everybody can go vote. I don't want anybody disenfranchised. And there's so much cheating going on. And with this, sending a ballot out to people and you can't even verify their signature, this is going to be a disaster.
Tim, I think
and everybody's all for it.
I think you're right, Tim, but definitely save all those things you've been sent. I've been getting a lot of them too. I'm trying to see how high I can stack them. But Tim, we appreciate the call. Tom in Northville, what's on your mind?
Yes, I just wanted to hi, ML. I just wanted to touch on a few important points. One, the data of the people's names and the addresses has to be accurate. And I haven't heard anybody do a sample of, let's say, the last 25 people that recently moved. And where are their addresses in the system? And where are their ballots going to be mailed to? And nobody talks about scrubbing the data. The next thing that's important is the mail isn't just processed by the post office. It's processed by third-party mail houses that have little control in those mail houses. Go visit one of them. They're all around the city. They're all around southeastern Michigan. They're called third-party mail houses, and they process most of the mail, not the U.S. Post Office. The last point I want to make is mailing is not perfect. Go ask any corporation, and when they send out their mailing, they have what's called an acceptable error rate. It's as high as 10 to 15%, which means 10 to 15% do not get the mail. Those are my points.
Yeah, that I don't know if that number is right, but certainly I think we could all agree that if someone has taken the time to cast a ballot, we don't want to see it in some sort of acceptable loss category or shrinkage, as they call it in business sometime. Thanks very much for that call. We really appreciate it. Now we're going to try and keep you on track with my man, Michael Stetz, who's going to give you the latest on traffic here on WJR.
I'll come back in about 2 minutes and reorder the calls for you.
Okay. Yep. It looks. If Dan's still around, we can go to him.
He is. I think he'll here. But I've got
Okay.
calls. I'm going to mute myself really quickly.
I gotta say, I don't think Tim from Brownstown idea was that bad.
Which was Tim?
He was the one
The weekend?
Yeah, the weekend.
Yeah.
All weekend too. You know, as much as I hear people talking about making Election Day a holiday, I've actually never heard anyone proposing just making it a voting weekend. I actually think that's not a bad idea.
Other countries have multi-day voting, and it can help if you have to juggle work or childcare or something like that. But yeah, the weekend, in fact, not that we want to take any cues from Russia, but I think they have multi-day voting too, where the polls are open for a while. But yeah, the one good thing is if you give people Tuesday off, it's not like you give them Monday off when they're just going to, bail out of town. You got to come back to work on Monday.
Right.
So you may as well stick around for Tuesday. But yeah, the weekend is great.
Yeah, you have that little stopper there. Well, I know that during the primaries, my voting location was moved. They consolidated 3 voting locations into one. And I went to go vote. And when I went in the morning, I couldn't even get near my voting place because it was one of those locations where, kids who get free lunch at school, they can pick up they could have. And so I couldn't even get to it in the morning, and obviously, those kids needed their free meals, so they probably should have moved the polling place to a place that wasn't already doing that all summer. But I had to leave and come back later on that evening, and not everyone's schedule is that flexible. I mean, there's some people who work 12, 18-hour days. If they can't get in the morning, they're screwed.
Oh yeah. Well, and if you got somebody watching your kid for 15 minutes and you're running over there, it can get pretty tricky. So, yeah, it is a hardship.
Yeah. Mark Gardner likes the idea too.
Mark is the most sensible gardener I've seen since Chauncey Gardner from being there. If anybody knows the old Peter Sellers movie, was great.
No, a little before my time. But I'm sure
man.
for the people who've seen it, it was a hilarious reference.
It was, yes. Anybody over the age of 70 is laughing right now. I just hope their dentures aren't slipping out, but it's worth it.
Yeah. By the way, I was getting kind of worried about you. For people who were watching on Facebook, we saw you were having a coughing fit. I didn't know if we'd have to call 911 to your house or what.
Well, I was looking for the cough button. The best I could do is get the mute on there. So,
well, what I did is I brought you down too, because the first time you were caught, and yeah, I'm like, oh, ML doesn't have a cough button over there.
Yeah, no, but it's good. These calls that we've had today, everybody is really well spoken and makes their point. So it's really easy just to say, I got a cough for 2 minutes. I'm going to let this person take over.
Yeah, right. Knock yourself out.
Yeah.
Their time to
and
shine.
The one dude who said he had 2 points, he had 1 point, 2 points, and he was done. When does that happen? It's usually, I got 2 points. And by the way, and then there's another half an hour. You're like, wait a minute, what happened to 2 points?
Yeah. Well, this is point 2J.
That's right.
Here we come. This is the Guy Gordon Show, 760 WJR, where Detroit comes to talk. Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
It's great to be back. We're taking more of your calls on the issue that the governor and the secretary of state were talking about this afternoon, and that is improving the chances that your ballot, once it's cast, will be counted. Jake and Dexter taking kind of a hard line on this. What's on your mind, Jake?
Hey, how you doing?
Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. Hey, so I got two things, and one first topic is on the voting issue. And I guess if people just kind of look at it, kind of an analogy or compare it to taking a flight. If you're going to buy a ticket to get on a plane and go somewhere for vacation, you have the responsibility of getting to that airport on time. And if you don't show up and you're not there on time, even if it's early to get checked in, if you miss that flight, the plane shouldn't wait for you. And I think it's the same thing with voting. I think if everybody knows when election day is, we all know it's a month or two out. And there's a big difference between mail-in voting and absentee voting. And if you're responsible and you do your absentee and you get it put in on time, you should be all set. But to ask the question, if it shows up late, but it was postmarked, should it be accepted? That'd be like saying if I showed up late to the airport, but I made it to the airport before the plane took off, should I expect that plane to wait for me? I'd say no. I'd say, look, get your stuff in or go vote in person, make sure your vote counts, but have some responsibility for yourself. You need to get your mail in on time, or you need to show up and vote on time to make sure that it counts.
So Jake, I love that analogy. Let me just take it a step further. Let's say I got my ticket. I'm supposed to fly out at 6 p.m. I get to the airport at 4:30 because it's a big deal for me to get to this big meeting in San Francisco or wherever. I get on the flight. I check in. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. The flight's supposed to leave at 6 o'clock, but then they have some mechanical problem or they miss a connection. And so this meeting I have in San Francisco at 10 p.m., which I'm safe to schedule because the flight's not going to take that long, doesn't get there by 10 p.m. and I miss my meeting and my boss says, hey, Elrick, you're supposed to be here at 10 p.m. You're fired. So I made my part. I got to the airport on time. I got on the flight. I got in my seat. And the analogy would be I got my ballot filled out. I dropped in the mailbox, but Delta didn't get me to San Francisco in time in the same way that United States Postal Service might not get my ballot to the clerk on time.
Right. But if you thought,
why should I suffer because the airline screwed up?
only because I would say the only answer I'd have to that is if that meeting was that important that it was going to require you to be fired if you weren't there on time, you would probably book a flight a day ahead of time. And
Okay,
I'm just saying,
Jake has thought about this. Okay, so you got me on that one, Jake. Okay, that's a good call.
That it's important to get their vote in, and I'm not again. It's really for me. It's more about I do want everybody to vote. It's just that sometimes people are like, well, we should do it this way, and then or extend the rules. It's like, no, let's have some personal responsibility. Let's get our vote in. If we're going to do it absentee, do it absentee early. And if you're going to vote in person, get out there and vote. I mean, I was first in my precinct this year to vote in primaries. I was the first. I was like, oh, that was the first time, but I loved it. It was like, get out there and do it. And then, and for the people who want to say, hey, that I put my mail in and it got in late. Hey, sorry. I mean, you missed your plane. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I think the governor and the secretary of state were basically saying what you said, which is don't take a chance. You'll miss your flight. Fly out a day early. But now you got to spend an extra day in San Francisco. It's a nice place, but it's kind of expensive. Anyways, Jake, great point. You've thought this through very clearly. What's your second point real quick so we can get to some more calls?
So, because I know you said you're an investigative reporter. I have not been able to get an answer on this. With our governor saying that we got no help from the federal government, but I personally know guys who that were working down at the TCF Center and the Suburban Show Place to make those into hospitals, and they did it relatively fast, and they did it for 1,000 people at TCF, and they only had to do 250 at Suburban. I've even called those places. I can't figure out, are they still functional to this day as we speak, or did they dismantle those hospitals?
Yeah, so
and the reason I ask is because she has so much concern that we might get worse or we might spike. And if that was the case, if they dismantled those hospitals before we're, her words, out of the woods, I think that's an absolute disgrace.
Right. And I can't speak to Novi, but I can tell you the TCF Center, which some people will remember was Cobo Hall at one time, which is in downtown Detroit, has been mothballed. Mayor Mike Duggan said that most of the staff has left there, but that facility at least is ready to be reopened at a moment's notice in case we have a surge where people need to be put there. So the money that was spent, the time by the Army Corps of Engineers and others to establish those places was not wasted. And if we have a flare up, at least downtown Detroit is ready to take patients. So great call, Jake. Really appreciate it. We could talk all day, but I got to get to Dan downriver. I got to spread the love here. Dan, how's it going?
Hey, Mr. Emrick, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Okay, good. I want to say in some downriver cities, I live downriver, you can go to the city hall and get the application, fill it out right there, and then they will give you the ballot. So you don't have to worry about mailing it back in. Now, I don't know if they do that in the Big D in Detroit, but a lot of cities downriver here, and I don't know, I think maybe even Dearborn, you can go to the clerk's office, say, I want an application for the ballot. They will let you fill that out. You only check one or two boxes. And then they say, I want the ballot here. They'll give you the ballot. So you have the application for the ballot, which is, everything's legal. You can fill the ballot out right there and turn it back in, and you don't even have to worry about it. Now, you were talking about also, do the laws need to be changed? Yes, they do. I believe that the laws should be changed, that they should extend the absentee ballot for 1 or 2 days past the election, so that gives people time to count the ballots. I believe these laws that were made in the 40s and the 50s, and whenever they made them, need to be updated into modern times. This is the millennium. This is not the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, or even the 90s. This is the millennium. And we need to understand the population has grown, okay? And there's more people that are going to come out and vote. And I'm going to tell you this to all your listeners, be ready. There is going to be an onslaught of voters like you ain't never seen before, and especially young women who you ain't never seen before come out. I personally believe that.
Dan,
okay?
I think you're right, and I think the polling suggests that that women are going to be the most decisive voting bloc in 2020. Just a point on when you can vote. I know from personal experience that you can go to the city clerks, to the election bureau in Detroit, and vote before Election Day. They'll give you a ballot, they'll check you in, and they'll let you fill it out right there and turn it in. I think that's the law throughout the state of Michigan. I'm not the Secretary of State, so please don't take anything I'm saying as gospel, but you should look into that, because if you would like to vote in person before Election Day, I believe you do have the right and the opportunity to do that. Certainly in Detroit in the past, you've been able to do that, but that's one way for people to get their vote counted before Election Day and not have to worry about the postman or woman getting it there in time. Dan, Jake, great calls. We're going to take a break for some great calls about how you get you from point A to point B with as little trouble as possible from Mr. Michael Stetz.
In Pontiac on M59 eastbound between Saginaw Street and North Perry Street, that's closed right now due to road construction that's scheduled through October 4th. Plan on delays. In Oakland County, you're moving slowly on 75 northbound between 696 and 11 Mile. And in Wayne County, you're moving slowly on 94 eastbound between 75 and Van Dyke. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Shelving.com. Shelving.com has a wide selection of Metro brand shelving and storage products now offered at new lower prices. From their popular chrome wire shelving to antimicrobial Metro Max units, Shelving.com is the best spot to shop for your Metro product needs. That's Shelving.com. We rack your world. Showers early on this evening with a low of 54. Partly cloudy for Thursday with a high tomorrow of 65. Right now it's 65 degrees. I'm Michael Stetz, WJR News in 3 minutes.
So we got the next 5-6 minutes off then, right?
Yeah, you have a little break. And if you wanted to, if you want to take a break, we can hit the news. But we do have Steve at 4:05, right, Laura? She just got back.
Yes, he'll be in the studio here for you.
Oh, good. So he's able to come over. Okay, terrific.
Yep, he's already done with his interview.
Well, that's great because I'm curious if he's going up there. I mean,
yeah,
good. Yeah, I mean, just from a programming perspective, are we? Are there going to be fans? If they're fans, are we doing a pregame show? There's a lot of question marks.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they'll do a pregame show because I'm sure they've sold it. But if you've ever gone up there, WJR has a huge bubble. I mean, it looks like a bounce house with clear walls. And it's Steve and whoever in there, and it's right in the middle of campus. I mean, it's very high profile. It's almost, I'm sure, a destination for people on their way to the stadium. But now,
I've had to go up there and set up the broadcast a couple of times, and I mean, they've got like this beautiful like wood desk. I don't know if it smells of rich mahogany, but it's pretty nice. And that just stays up. I don't know if it just stays up all football season or what, but I mean, like, if I had a space heater, I could probably sleep there the night before. That's how nice it is.
Oh yeah, it's like Steve is the bubble boy. He's just living there, and now I guess that's what you'd want to be. You don't want anybody to touch you, know.
We've got the plexiglass up so that we'll just clam bake in our own germs.
Yeah, exactly. That funk is your own, so don't complain too much.
Yeah, but they hook us up there up at MSU. If I have to do an outdoor broadcast in the rain, that's the place I would pick because it's essentially it's a luxurious tent up there.
Yeah. I think it's like as close as you'll come to a snow globe.
Right.
It's just I hope that's snow and not Steve's dandruff that's blowing around in there.
No, Steve has beautiful hair. I don't think he has dandruff.
Okay, good.
That could be your first question for him, though.
He's head and shoulders above George Blaha then.
As far as I know, everyone involved in the MSU broadcast has healthy scalps.
Well, George Blaha, I mean, I guess the scalp is healthy. He's just got one of those sunsetter retractable awnings over it. That's the problem. He should be doing endorsements for New
I
York
guess
Carpet World or whatever.
I guess it comes for us all. I got a little receding hairline there myself. Or
Well, hey, like I said, mine used
yeah.
to be down here, but it's as it goes back, I just accept it. I don't try and
Yeah. I got the Dracula going if I, really let it down.
That's good. Yeah. You could always do the old Caesar too, where you just bring this bank straight down, be George Clooney,
I was gonna say like
1997.
Yeah. When I always have a hard time picking between that and the Rachel, between my favorite 90s haircuts.
Yeah. Yeah. The Rachel, I think you'll still see those every once in a while.
Yeah. Laura's the only one on the show not slowly going bald.
No, she's got beautiful hair.
As far as I know.
There's a big one that's popular among all the moms where my daughters went to high school, where it's all shaved up the back and it's kind of shaved on the side, but then there's this massive bank of hair that comes over the side where it looks like they were getting their hair cut, but they ran out, and it's just like, oh, you got the one side of your head cut, but the other side's still there.
Speak right in your mic.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think Kate Gosselin from that TLC show made that pop.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Because every woman wants to have
the camera on you and everything there. So
every woman wants to have 8 children and a cheating husband.
And a reality show.
Yeah, let's all be Kate Gosselin. Oh yeah.
Kate Gosselin, that's the meme everyone has. That they call that hair the Karen because that's the memes where it says, I want to speak to your manager or whatnot.
So my mom's name is Karen, and she's like a very, very demure woman, and so she's like, "Why are people making me sound so mean?"
I do feel bad for
you
women.
Beat the hell out of me with the wooden spoon for all those years, but I didn't know how anybody else knew about that. But
I do feel bad for women actually named Karen because they didn't ask for any of this.
Yeah, well, when I was, this would have been quite a while ago, but when I was out east, the term that a lot of the guys I knew would use was Megan, because there was a look that was around then where women had kind of shorter hair and they'd wear like a little sweater with a couple of like pearl buttons buttoned, and it was almost like a uniform. And it'd be like, there's a bunch of Megans over there. And I'm like, somewhere there's a Megan saying, I don't look like that,
Well, Kyle's were much maligned for a while online. The stereotype of the roided out guy wearing the tank top, drinking Monster and punching walls.
Oh yeah.
One of my best friends, Kyle, he lives with 2 cats and he likes NPR. So he doesn't fit that stereotype.
So he's the one. Okay.
Yeah, he's the one, Kyle, that doesn't do that.
At least he's not wearing the was it the Zumbas or the Zuzas, whatever the big leopard. No,
the pants,
the zebra pants that all the weightlifters were wearing in the early 90s.
Yeah, they're not
with
called
all the different colors.
Yeah, I don't remember what those were called. Yeah, it sounds like Zumbas.
Zuzats, I think it was. It was something, but
I'll figure it out while you're talking to Steve.
Oh man, Steve may have a pair.
He might.
I figure everybody on radio has a pair of those because you're just comfortable, right? Just put your socks and your sandals on and your Zuzats and you're ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, Steve is wearing sandals.
He's always wearing sandals.
Do you want to call for this Whitmer cut, by the way, or do you want me to just play it coming in?
Yeah, no. Let me go to that because we'll introduce Steve and we'll set the scene and then we'll say even the governor had an opinion on this.
Yeah. Okay, we're back in 30 here, and Steve is good to go. He's on camera. This is the first time we're using it in the studio. So here we go. Back in we're blazing a trail here. Back in 15.
This is the Guy Gordon Show on News Talk 760 WJR. Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Thanks for joining us for hour 2 of the Guy Gordon Show. I'm ML Elrick, investigative reporter at the Detroit Free Press, filling in for Guy. And this is a very exciting opportunity for me to catch up with a good friend of mine. Last time I saw him, I think might have been in campus on the largest snow globe in human history. That's Mr. Steve Courtney, your host of MSU Tailgate Show. Steve, the first thing I got to ask is if the players are coming back, are you getting back in the bubble? Are you going to be our green and white bubble boy?
Well, it's going to be worked on, ML. First of all, always a pleasure, my friend. Hope you and yours are well. That's being discussed right now. My duties for the 2020 Spartan season will be expanded. Tailgate show host as well as pregame and postgame. So looking forward to it. Obviously, first-year head coach Mel Tucker couldn't have gotten off to a worse start. Got the gig back in February. Next thing you know, everything comes to a screeching halt. But very excited by today's news, ML.
So do you think that this is a good decision by the Big Ten, or if you always wanted to play football, do you think that they mishandled how they came to this conclusion?
You know what? I don't think that's an easy question to answer because we've never come across anything like this. I think at the beginning, back in March, when everything was shut down, again, nobody knew any better. And I think as we got closer, and here's the thing, ML, back in March, I think everybody was under the impression, all right, let's just do what we need to do here, get through it. At the very least, come summer, we're going to have college football, NFL, everything else. And now we've got this. And you had a few conferences saying, oh no, we're playing. Meanwhile, how long ago was it that the Big Ten and Pac-12 said, no, we're out? And then you see college football going on this past weekend. And you're thinking, well, if these guys are playing, why not the Big Ten? So everybody says finances had nothing to do with it. But you did hear along the way how much money Big Ten, Pac-12, all these conferences that opted out, how much they were losing. So don't think for a second that finances didn't come into play here a little bit. But I also think that the science was heated to a little bit because things are different now than they were even late July. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Absolutely. And really, as someone who spends a lot of time covering the city of Detroit, one of the most impressive things I've seen government do, and I rarely see government do impressive things, was coming up with the instant tests that allowed Detroit police officers and Detroit firefighters to stay on the job. Detroit came up with this protocol. We're going to take your temperature, and then we're going to give you one of these rapid tests. And if you're good to go, you hit the streets. And if not, you go back and you hit the bedroom. So I'm a little surprised that the Big Ten and other sporting leagues did not seize on this very same technology, which Detroit's been using since maybe April. But even with all the testing, while there are teams playing, I think, was it Virginia and Virginia Tech that canceled their first game because they had so many players who were not well. So the fact that you can tell who's healthy and who's not healthy doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to have a game that day.
Well, I think we're all in agreement here. I think it's very exciting that the Big Ten will resume play the weekend of October 24th. But to a degree there, ML, if you consider that we are at the mercy of the virus, is it pie in the sky? Especially when you still have some noted scientists. And look, there's been misinformation along the way. There's no question about it. But there's still some scientists saying what we could come across in fall, winter will make what we've just been through look like Disney World. Now, again, very exciting. I'm all excited about the Big Ten getting back to it. And hopefully it will go off without a hitch.
Yeah, I do not want to see the Disneyland scenario, although I really do like seeing Ariel and Belle from Beauty and the Beast when you kind of walk around the park. I'm always the old guy there. Is like, could you sign my program? I get maced a lot at Disneyland. I'm gonna be completely upfront with you on that, Steve. But it's worth it for me. But yeah,
I've heard Al, but I don't want to talk about that right now.
Yeah, no. This is a family show. We'll keep it sophisticated. I know your grandkids may be listening. I don't want to expose them to that sort of thing, and I don't want to scare them off from Disneyland either. But yeah, this is the sort of thing where we are in uncharted waters. It does seem like the professional sports leagues have provided some sort of template. Of course, we've seen from campus to campus different reactions. Ann Arbor seems to be fairly healthy. East Lansing and now Allendale seem to be in a bit of danger. But earlier today, just before joining you all, I was able to talk to Mayor Duggan at his press conference about how he felt about the Big Ten coming back. And he said the Big Ten screwed up. They made their decision too soon, and he's going to do whatever he can to get in the big house, even if he's got to push a broom. And even Governor Whitmer, who's been one of the voices of caution, had this to say earlier today at her press conference.
We're all trying to do what we can to engage in some normalcy and keep people safe. And there's not a perfect way to do this, but we continue to watch the virus prevalence in Michigan. We continue to determine if there are additional things that we can do safely. But if we want to preserve that as an option, we've got to be serious about masking up, and we've got to be serious about this re-engagement of our economy in the safest way, and that's everyone doing their part.
So I think, Steve, you probably remember hearing the president at Alabama when they had 1,000 or 1,200 cases say, if y'all want football, y'all got to wear your mask, but they're still going to have football. Are you worried that once we get this thing underway, that there'll be some sort of flare up where they might have to say, we can't have football, we're going to suspend the season?
Well, I don't know. Nobody knows the answer to that question. I think we're going into this, as positively as possible, ML. I find it interesting, though, that through the announcement of the Big Ten today, they also said that football players who test positive for COVID-19 must wait at least 21 days to return to competition, as they're going to undergo comprehensive cardiac testing. So, usually it's been 14 days. Sorry, you're going in the penalty box for 14 days. And when you come out, we'll see what happens. But, 21 days here with severe cardiac testing. So there is concern that myocarditis, that inflammation of the heart muscle caused by viral infections like COVID, has crossed people's minds. And, as we're having this conversation, ML, I don't know what the end game is going to be. As I mentioned earlier, I certainly hope for everybody involved that when you kick this thing off the weekend of October 24th, you are able to play the full 9 games on the schedule.
I hope so too. And I'm looking forward to hearing you hosting the tailgate show and the post game now. And, when I think about people in college football having heart attacks and problems with their hearts, the only time I'm in favor is when somebody has trouble with the snap. So Spartan fans know exactly what I'm talking about. Steve,
I'm picking up what you're laying down there, my friend.
Steve, it's going to be great to hear you back on the airwaves. I think we all agree on that. I do hope that we get through the season in a healthy way, and I hope that Coach Tucker has had enough time to get his guys where he needs them to be. I think that's a tall order, but I know you'll take us there, and I'm looking forward to hearing what I'm sure you'll be with President Stanley. That'll be a new relationship, and Coach Tucker. We all need to hear more from the coach.
Looking forward to it, ML, and always a pleasure, my friend.
Steve Courtney, be safe, be well. Give those grandkids a kiss, and maybe I'll see you up on campus.
I'm looking forward to it.
We're going to take a quick break now for traffic with Michael Stetz.
WJR Traffic First, sponsored by Operating Engineers 324. Operating Engineers 324 run the heavy equipment that's building Michigan's roads. Remember to slow down and pay attention in work zones for the workers' safety and yours. OE 324, we build, we operate, we maintain. Visit OE324.org. In the city, you're moving slowly right now on 94 eastbound between Woodward and Van Dyke. In Wayne County, you're a slow go right now on 94 westbound between the Lodge and 96. And in Oakland County, you're slowly moving on 75 southbound right now between 12 Mile and 11 Mile. Now WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel.
Well, more 40s ahead for nighttime low temps. Boy, the weather pattern's feeling good. This is the warm day of the week. We're up to 80 degrees. A little cold front up across the UP. Not really kicking up much rainfall. There's not much moisture to work off of here in Michigan. Our temps tonight in the mid-50s. Some clouds tomorrow, maybe a sprinkle, high 65, low 45 tomorrow night. I'm meteorologist Scott Laurie. More on News Talk 760 WJ.
All right. Normal hour of the show after that hectic 3 o'clock. Feels nice.
So we're back in a couple minutes after spots, and we'll try and get to some of these calls, and then invite more folks to join on to get us to 5.
Yeah, looks like we're all calls here from.
Yep.
Back in about 3 minutes. People always happy to see Steve. Jerry's a fan of Jake's call. I think he was the one who made the analogy to getting fired and making sure you're there, right?
Yeah, making the airline. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good analogy. I thought I had him, but he had an answer for that. I was like, okay.
Right. Well,
that's one for Jake.
Sometimes it's all about being honest. If someone zigs and zags and pokes holes in your point, then you say, "Hey, nice job."
No, but that's the whole thing. Is I think there are people out there like, oh, you're coming from one angle or the other. I'm just here to try and find problems with the argument. If there's no problems with the argument, that's a pretty damn good argument. I'd say Jake got through the minefield. He did pretty well.
Yeah, you're kind of like a litigator. No matter what your personal opinion is, you just want to make sure everyone's points are ironclad.
That's it. I had a natural science class at State, and we had to debate some points, and it was one of these deals where you didn't get to pick which side you argued, and you could end up arguing something you absolutely didn't agree with, but it was great because it really forced you to say, okay, let me think of why I feel the way I do, and let me see if I can blow a hole through it. And it was if all the natural science classes had been like that, I would have graduated with a science degree. As it was, they brought in I think some quantum physics at some time, and I was out.
Yeah, well, that's a good exercise. I think everyone should have a debate with themselves when trying to figure out what they believe. If nothing else, just for being good at fighting people on Facebook.
Well, it's called the scientific method. You test your theory, and if it doesn't fall apart, then you got something. If it falls apart, you go back to the drawing board. So let's see. Oh, we still got ballot calls. So that's good.
Yeah. That kind of happens even if we bring in new topics. Especially if you have a strong one like your first topic, they'll kind of be sprinkled in throughout the show.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Back in 10 here.
Okay.
27:30 will be your next break. Traffic.
The stories that have been breaking while you've been at work. 760 WJR, where Detroit comes to talk. Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
So I can't tell you whether I think it's a good idea that they're returning to play football. I have some very serious concerns about it. As much as I love football and as much as I love Spartan football, I'm a season ticket holder. But I will tell you there's no debate in my mind that it's going to be great to hear more of Steve Courtney. It may not be great for Steve, though, because it sounds like he's taking on more duties. And then, of course, he's got Lions the next day. So Steve is going to be looking a little ragged by the end of the season, but he's a good-looking guy. He starts at a 10. If he wears himself out, he ends up at an 8.5. That's better than most of us. So, Steve, thanks for joining us. We are taking your calls at 1-800-859-0957. That's 1-800-859-0WJR. Happy to talk to you about whether you think it's good for the Big Ten to resume college football, or if you want to keep talking about your vote and how it would be counted. We have plenty of calls to get to on that subject. So let's start with Robert in Sterling Heights, who's been patiently holding on the line. Robert, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Tell you what, I just have a really bad feeling that Michigan's going to be the Florida of 2000, and we're not going to get anything right for a long time. Because you look at it, you just said about the 400 ballots that were sent to the military that had Trump and Cohen on them. Couldn't you have a good lawsuit or a good case stating that people who voted for Trump on that Trump-Cohen were thinking they're voting for the Libertarian Party? I think you might have a good case. And I think we all know that it's not a matter of the law. It's who the judge is presiding over it. And a good question would be, if the governor extends her executive emergency order past November 3rd, what type of power does she have to make those decisions? I know the Secretary of State has a lot, but maybe she does have some, or maybe there's some archaic law from 1836, when before Michigan was a state, that may come up that they may use. We don't know about that. But I do think a lot of your listeners did say, I think it's going to be litigated for a long time. And you could make a good case too that, hey, if we don't count those votes that were postmarked prior, that's suppressing a vote too.
I think those are excellent points, Robert. And one thing about the governor's executive order and her powers, her emergency powers, there are limits on that, because if you remember before the primary, she issued an executive order that you had to wear a mask if you were going into a business or a public place or in certain areas. But she said a mask is recommended for going to the polling places, because she did not have the power to say if you did not have a mask, you could not vote, because the right to vote trumped her executive order power. So there are limitations there. But when you talk about Michigan being the Florida of 2000, I'm sure folks remember the drawn out recount between Al Gore and George Bush. Michigan in 2016 was no picnic. I remember waking up at 5 a.m. the morning after the election in the lobby of the clerk's office on West Grand Boulevard in Detroit, waiting to see what the final count was. I had to go live on Fox 2 at like 5:15 in the morning, something ridiculous like that. And we still didn't know what the official vote was. And that was before we were in the middle of an virtually unprecedented pandemic. So Robert, I think you're also looking into a crystal ball that's tuned in pretty sharply. Peggy in Belleville, thanks for joining us here on the Guy Gordon Show.
Hi. I think that people don't understand the reason why Trump is upset about the idea of mail-in voting, because I don't think it's necessarily the mail-in voting, but it's the part about where you are given your absentee ballot request form. Because in the HEROES Act that Nancy Pelosi wanted to get passed with the $3 trillion that the Senate has balked on, is in that she had a statement where the HEROES Act would eliminate the state requirements by voters for voter ID in federal elections. So you could get a absentee ballot request without having to prove who you are or where you lived. So I think that's what he was reacting to, and that shouldn't be allowed. You have to prove who you are and where you live. And that's what you have to do when you make your first application to be an absentee voter, to prove who you are and where you live.
What you can vote, I believe, without having an ID. You have to fill out a declaration that you are who you say you are. And I think that is done in case the vote is so close that they have to go back and review some of those things. So I believe it is possible to vote without bringing a photo ID. But folks, let's make this easy on the people who work at the polls. They are working monster days. I mean, 16, 18-hour days, not handsomely compensated. They're essentially volunteers who might get like a bologna sandwich in the middle of the day and a nice can of Shasta or something like that. Let's make it easy on them. Please bring your ID with you. Please bring your photo ID so we can get you through the line, and so there's no question whatsoever that your ballot is going to be counted. But Peggy, thank you very much for giving us a call here on the Guy Gordon Show. James in Tecumseh, what do you think should happen with these ballots that just don't get into the hands of the right people at the right time?
Well, let's use common sense, ML. This is a very simple problem to fix, but we're too stupid to fix it. Mail-in ballots 14 days prior. If it's not postmarked 14 days prior, period, you have plenty of time to mail it back in. And you have to have it in 14 days prior, then don't count. You give them a deadline, like you can't go into to vote in person at 8:01 because the polls close at 8 o'clock. You give them the postmark midnight 2 weeks prior. It solves everything. But we're too stupid not to do something that easy.
So, James, let me tell you something about the exception to the polls closing. Oftentimes you see when there's a large turnout that if there are people in line and they won't be able to vote by the time the polls close, typically a federal judge will extend the voting deadline, not so that people can get in line after 8 o'clock, but that if you're in line at 8 o'clock, you can continue to vote even if you don't get inside the polling place until 10 p.m. So even then, that hard and fast rule has some cracks in it. But one of the things I'm curious about, and I like the idea of giving people a deadline where you say, if you get it postmarked by this date, we will count it no matter what. Did you see the story about somebody who got a postcard that was sent 100 years ago?
Yeah, I
This
did.
really happened.
I did hear that, and they
So
mailed it.
would you say that we can count your vote as long as it was postmarked in time if it shows up 100 years later?
Why not?
Okay, all right.
The president's long gone. But I do know what you're talking about as long as you're in line at 8 o'clock. You're still there at 8 o'clock. So you tell these people, you mail it in, postmark midnight that day, we're good to go.
I think that's a pretty reasonable solution. And if you're paranoid that the post office might sit on your ballot, you can go up to the window and say, will you postmark this right in front of me? They pound the stamp on it right there. James, I'll tell you what, if you run for office, I'm voting for you. You're coming to Lansing with some solutions. That's something we don't see all that much. Nick in Petersburg, what's on your mind? Or Nick?
Well, there is no difference between mail-in or absentee. Michigan, you do not have to have a reason for an absentee ballot. They're going to be available, I understand, the 25th of September. If you get it in, you get it back, you get it in the mail. Don't wait till the day before the election to mail it. But why don't we get like every other civilized country in the world and have our election last 4 days or a week or 2 days, 3 days? You're trying to put 350 million people through that polling area in 1 day. It's a physical impossibility. And, you know, it's real simple. When you get your ballot, whether it's you want to call it mail-in or absentee, mail it back. Don't sit on it.
Nick, you're the second caller today who suggested extending the polling over multiple days. And we were talking about during one of the breaks, you know, there are other countries, a lot of other countries that do it that way. And it really is an idea that I think is not getting enough discussion. The only shortcoming that I can see is that they're having trouble getting polling workers for 1 day. So now if you say we need to get poll workers for 2 or 3 or 4 days, that can become a problem. But frankly, you know, if you start preparing for it now, this is America. We can deal with any problem. We might not get it right the first time, but we'll get it right the second or third time. We could make this work if it becomes a law of the land. I'm getting some pretty mind-blowing ideas thrown at us today, but I think they're really good. And I think this is something that we should try and get going so that once we get through 2020, we have a lot more options so that people's vote count. Because I think I gotta believe that every single one of us, as much as we may have a feeling about how we want people to vote, we just want people to vote. I mean, I know people who completely disagree with me on things. I would drive them to the polling place just because I think it's important that they cast their ballot, even if it may cancel out mine, because it's so important. One of the most heartbreaking things about this country is what low turnout we have. 50% sometimes 12% in primaries. People die for your right to vote. This country was established so that you could be heard, so that you could make a difference. We've got to be able to vote. So I like what you're saying. And oh my goodness, I went right past the traffic break. You know what? We got to get Mike Stetson here because he's going to tell you how to get to the polls. Better get started now.
In Monroe County, you're stop and go right now on 23 southbound between Ida West Road and Summerfield Road. And in Wayne County, you're a slow go on 94 eastbound right now between 75 and Mount Elliott Street. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel, sponsored by the Detroit VA Healthcare System. Veterans, the Detroit VA Healthcare System reminds you to not let COVID-19 postpone your healthcare needs. The Detroit VA is ready to care for you in their medical facilities and through online video visits. To learn more, visit detroit.va.gov. Showers early on this evening with a low of 54. Right now it's 65 degrees. I'm Michael Stetz, WJR News. Next.
You got inspired there at the end.
Well, you know, I was going through the calls and we have so many calls that I lost the traffic break there.
Oh, I see.
Which is bad because I actually had written on a piece of paper, so I had a backup, and I just Nick was onto something, man. I think we're gonna call this the Parsons Project. Maybe we could call it the Alan Parsons Project.
Oh, my Uncle Alan, yes.
Has that been taken?
Yeah.
So Dr. Evil was going to use that to.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know if I know any actual songs from the Alan Parsons Project. I've heard references my whole life, obviously, along with motorcycles and blowing a fart and falling apart. But I don't know if I've. Yeah.
Well, there's one that you probably recognize. Don't Answer Me. Don't. It's a very romantic song. But Alan Parsons was there. They were okay.
Let's see. Let me see.
I don't think anybody in the band is actually named Alan Parsons.
Yeah,
I think it's like a Leonard Skinner type joke.
Or Hootie and the Blowfish. You know, Darius Rucker is not. He's not actually Hootie.
But they do blow.
Well, you know, it depends.
And fish, especially now they're doing country.
Yeah, Darius Rucker probably does have to fish. That's part of his brand. Let's see. I'm looking up Alan Parsons Project song. I probably would recognize one if I heard it. I just didn't know it was them. Oh, there was a guy named Alan Parsons,
and he was in the band.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was his project. So small world.
There was nobody named Steely Dan, though.
No, I don't think so.
No, and I won't tell you what Steely Dan is because
I'm guessing it's a reference to.
We're in mixed company here.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's a reference to something herbal.
No, not at all.
No.
Do not look it up at work.
You know, I was actually about to Google it.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
Siri, tell me what Steely Dan is after work. Well, now I'm very curious. I thought maybe someone. I thought maybe someone mentioned it on the Facebook chat, but I guess not. Let's see. Mark agrees with you, ML. He thinks that we do have some pretty good callers today.
Yeah, what happened? Did we scare off all the Monday callers? It seems like the week has become more reasonable. By Friday, we're gonna have people.
We're gonna be having tea and crumpets.
Yeah, they're gonna call in to share poetry. I'm glad I'm getting out of here before Thursday.
Yeah, we'll be like, wow, if ML could only be here.
Yes, it would be one big lovin', and then we wouldn't need Steely Dan's.
No. Well, I don't know if I agree with you because I don't know what Steely Dan is. Laura, you don't know what a Steely Dan is, do you? It was. Oh, you're muted. Hold on. I think we're muting your mic, like you and I are trying to unmute at the same time.
No, I didn't touch it.
There you are.
Yeah, I thought it was a band.
It is a band, but they took their name from something.
Oh.
Sandy's in the same boat as us. She thinks it's a band. Well, we know it's a band, but I guess it references something.
Yeah, Sandy, don't type the rest. I actually saw Steely Dan at Pine Knob a few years ago. They were outstanding, but now.
Yeah, they used to come every summer, didn't they?
Yeah, well, they still do, but the guitar player died.
Well, not
Walter
this year.
Becker. Yeah. Yeah, no, he found a way to beat the virus. Die first.
Right. That's a good strategy.
Take that, Eric and Armada.
If you die of a heart attack, you won't get cancer, right?
It's the best preventative medicine around.
Well,
we don't recommend it, though. Let's be clear about that. We're not endorsing that.
Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to go off the Wi-Fi and just go off my my cellular network and look up Steely Dan. I mean, not like this isn't being documented anyway on the internet for anyone to see, but.
Oh boy.
We do get to see your facial expression.
That's right. Let's see. Rock band. Rock band. You know, maybe the rock band is knocking the original meaning off the front
Does he have
page.
to go to Urban Dictionary?
No,
That's
no.
That's where I'm going next.
This predates the Urban Dictionary. This predates the internet.
Steely Dan meaning of the name. You're right. It's a good thing I didn't look it up.
Yeah, don't.
All right. I'm going to give it to Laura because we're friends.
Do not create a hostile work environment.
I'll read it
there.
during the break as you're shaking that.
Okay. There you go. We're
And
back
I
in
do have a
40.
call to answer.
Oh, that's right. We're still doing a radio. It's been dead air
We
on the
are
radio.
working.
What's that? We've had dead air on the radio for 2 minutes as I'm trying to figure out what Steely Dan means. All right, here we come. 17 seconds.
If you say what it is, we'll have dead air for the rest of the show.
Yeah, I'll be a dead man. This will be my last show.
This is The Guy Gordon Show on News Talk 760 WJR. Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
My friends, it's great to be with you on a beautiful afternoon, coming to you live from Detroit's East Side, filling in for Guy Gordon. We want you to be part of the show too. Don't, if you're like my wife, you're already sick of me talking so much. Why don't you take the heavy lifting here? Give us a call at 1-800-859-0957, 1-800-859-0WJR. The airwaves are a public trust that we are entrusted to keep, but we're willing to turn it back to the public, but only if you give us a call. Greg in Shelby Township has been patiently waiting to join us. Greg, kick some of that wisdom our way.
Michael, ML.
Mr. Positive, where you been my whole life?
Oh, my God. You don't realize how funny you are. Your quips are so awesome. You don't realize. You obviously you do because you wouldn't do it, but you are awesome. Hey, I'm calling about the ballot in the mail is Serpentine. It's going to be a mess, but I didn't call for that. I'm calling for the football Big Ten.
Yes, sir.
It's got to be in a bubble, number one. Number two, it's sad that we can't have in-school instruction. And number three, they're young kids. They're a little bit heavy. It's going to be, you can get the COVID when you're a little bit out of shape, you're a little bit heavier. The linemen are more prone because they've got little bellies. They got little Buddha bellies. And I'm just thinking that there's going to be some problems with this. And what say you, ML?
I'm concerned that these young men are putting their lives at risk and they're not being properly compensated. I am against paying college athletes. I think they're already handsomely compensated in the form of free tuition, free room and board, all the extra instruction they get, the clothes, the travel, the opportunities. But unlike professional athletes, if you tell me you're going to pay me $1 million and I may be putting my life at risk, that seems like a little bit better deal than, hey, I'm not giving you anything other than a free education, but you're putting your life at risk. So I have some very, very serious concerns about the danger we're exposing these young men to. But if the testing is good and if people are disciplined, that's great. I look at what's going on in East Lansing and I say to myself, these kids are crazy. They're doing exactly what they shouldn't be doing and they're getting sick. And while I sit here and shake my finger at them as an old man, if I was their age, I'd be doing the exact same thing. So I'm worried that it's going to be hard to get college athletes who are young men and women to do everything they should do. But I guess now we're going forward. So let's just hope they do it the best way possible. So Mr. Positive, I'm going to stay positive myself and hope we get through this with no injuries and no lasting ill effects. But I'm crossing my fingers and I'm saying a prayer. So good to hear from you. Thanks for checking in. Paul and Brighton, talking a little bit about election reform. What are your thoughts on what's happening right here in 2020?
It's really a laugh to hear the Republicans talk about the election. We've got to have these results right away because they weren't opposed to delaying the election in 2020 when Bush took Gore to the Supreme Court. And you know what the court did was kind of this double jive that people do with, they like on the road, they pull in front of you, like they're going to fast break, then you rear end them. Well, this is what the court did. The court, first of all, the first thing they did was state of Florida, stop as if we have all the time in the world. And time's a ticking and the votes aren't being counted. And then the court said, oh, no. We couldn't possibly be counting all the votes now because we have to certify this election by December 17th, right? And therefore, if we continue to count the votes, George W. Bush would be irreparably harmed. George W. Bush would be irreparably harmed. Look at the state of Michigan. We're not allowed to open the ballots until election day. So more than likely, as one said, you have to mail between 14 days in advance. More than likely, your ballot isn't going to be opened until after November 3rd, right? So what difference does it make if after the ballot?
Yeah, Paul, your line's breaking up a little bit, but your point comes through loud and clear. I think the one difference that we're dealing with now, as opposed to 2020, is there wasn't a question of whether your ballot would be received in time. It was how much time should be taken to determine who you picked. And that is an important distinction, but you are right. Now people are being very strict and trying to say, if we don't have by such and such a time, that's it. Back then it was, well, we need more time. Okay, we don't need more time. And then there was an arbitrary deadline. It was crazy. And I don't know if people out there are familiar with Linda Greenhouse. She is a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter for the New York Times who covered the Supreme Court in 2000, when the Supreme Court essentially decided who our next president would be. Linda Greenhouse wrote a column a couple weeks ago in the New York Times that I found chilling. She said we could be facing another Florida. So 20 years after that mess, the hanging chads, all that other stuff, she's predicting we could have another controversy and more questions about which votes should count that could be decided by the Supreme Court. So let's cross our fingers and hope that this decision, whichever way it goes, is clear and fast, and we know who our president's going to be before we start to fight amongst ourselves. But if you're trying to fight traffic, Michael Stetz is here to make sure that you're the winner. So, Michael, take it away.
Wow, she really can say WJR.
Yeah, Monroe County.
So there's a guy in Novi named Books.
Oh, it's Brooks. I'm sorry, I had a typo, but only Brooks and Tom are left on the line.
Okay, that's okay. I was going to go to him just because his name is Books.
No,
That's a cool name.
That is a Laura error, and if you work with me long enough, you'll realize there's usually many of those.
Well, that's okay. You know what? Brooks is a cool name too, but I was like, Books, there's got to be a good story behind that. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Paul was on a roll. His signal was tantalizing. He would tease us like it was going to come through clear, and then he'd get on a little run that it'd garble. I think at some point we gave him every chance to make his point, and he was re-plowing ground. But yeah.
Sometimes we've got to cut our losses.
That's okay. He said what he had to say.
Yeah, we understood his point. Are you there, Mike? You keep going in and out.
Who, me? Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
For some reason, when I jump in, you freeze up on my screen, so I was just doing some experimentations.
I thought it might have been what you saw on your phone that melted it.
No, yeah, I did show Laura, and she actually brought up a good point.
I don't even remember what that was.
You said that was some deep knowledge of Steely Dan.
Oh yeah, for them.
So does that mean you're a big Steely Dan fan, or are you?
No, I like Steely Dan a lot, and there's a great video on YouTube. There's some series where music makers discuss how they put together their greatest hits. One of the things about Steely Dan is there was no band. It was just Donald Fagen and Walter Brecker, and they would bring in all these virtuoso studio musicians, but they were so meticulous on the music and how they wanted to sound that they'd bring in like 10 guys to play stuff, like the best in the business. And they'd say, no, and they'd just kick them out, and they'd pick one. But they did this one thing where Michael McDonald does some of the backing vocals, the guy from Doobie Brothers.
Oh, sure.
In this song called Peg, which is one of their big hits. And so in this behind the music thing or whatever the hell it was called, they talk about how they put Peg together and they isolate Michael McDonald's tracks and they say, okay, Michael's not going to like this, but we're going to play the Michael McDonald tracks. And when they're isolated, they sound so cool in the song. When they're isolated, you just hear Michael McDonald going, Peg, 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 trying to hit the right note that they want. They're like, okay, do it again, Michael. Say, Peg. And it's hilarious. So they had like 20 takes. They didn't like 19 of them. They used one of them and it was the right call. But the rest of them, Michael McDonald somewhere is saying, dude, what are you doing to me? You make me look like a jerk. But they're really an interesting group. And like all those groups back then in the 70s, they had all kinds of drug problems and alcohol and,
So they're kind of like producers who sort of played their own music. Sort of like the Chainsmokers of their day.
Yeah. Well, I think one of them went to MIT or something. I mean, they were, these weren't guys who had a band in high school and just hit the road and made it big. I mean, these were very intellectual guys who also happen to be amazing musicians. And
the guy from Boston, he kind of just produced that. He just kind of was mostly the producer of that record, and he was just the only constant. So that's how he became Boston, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. No. So they're a very interesting band, and they also kind of were very reflective of the time they were in. Sort of, East Coast intellectuals in the 70s. They sing a lot about cocaine runs and just some crazy sort of free lovey type, 70s hippie stuff. But
yeah. So we're back here in a few seconds. I guess I will just say, if you want to know the origin of the band name, do so at your own risk and watch the movie Naked Lunch.
60 WJR.
You may want to use your incognito browser.
Here's special guest host, ML Elrick.
Folks, we're winding down the Guy Gordon Show for Wednesday. We've had some great conversations with all of you about your thoughts on election reform. I have to tell you, I've heard more good ideas on how we should fix voting in America in the last hour and a half than I have in the last month and a half coming out of Washington or Lansing. So thank you for raising the level of the debate. Thank you for keeping it civil. Thank you for making it thoughtful. And thank you for offering real solutions that I think would work. So let's hope that other people are paying attention. And just, if you know me before, if you've heard me fill in for Frank or Paul or sometimes Mitch and now Guy, I believe that you should not just share these ideas with me and with others. You should call your lawmakers. They work for you. You put them there, make them earn their right to stay. So share these ideas. You can find all their information at michigan.gov. It's the easiest thing in the world. Anyway, we want some more of your wisdom. Please give us a call, 1-800-859-0957. That's 1-800-859-0WJR. We have lots of time to try and get some more thoughts in here from the hoi polloi. A lot of people think that means the fancy pants. No, the hoi polloi means the regular people. It means you and me. Brooks and Novi, what's on your mind this afternoon?
Yeah. Hi, ML. I was just responding to one of the earlier callers and regarding the logistics of processing all of our votes. So he had mentioned that, the logistics of dealing with 350 million voters is a virtual impossibility. In 2016, there were only 138,870 something votes actually cast in the election. That pretty much breaks down, if you only take into account the 50 states and not the territories, roughly 2,700,000 and some votes per state to process. I don't think the logistics is difficult. People wait in line longer to ride a roller coaster at Cedar Point. I think we can do it in a 24-hour period, have concrete, legitimate, certified results. If we allow this thing to drag on, the potential for a Norm Coleman, Al Franken election result is a very real possibility. which I don't think the fraud and the chaos that is being planned for is going to be productive for the country at all.
Tom, I think that's a good point. One of the things when you delay announcing the winner is the person who thinks they've lost can cause more trouble by trying to convince people that they really won and that the election is being stolen. And, I think, again, if there's one thing all Americans can agree on is we don't want anybody stealing the right to lead this country and really the right to lead this world, because the president of the United States is the most powerful human being on earth. So let's try and get it right. And let's try and leave no doubt about the will of America. So Tom, appreciate that call. Sandy and Troy, you listened to the governor, but you didn't like what you heard. Tell us about that.
Well, there was one part of it where she was asked if she would release, and this was the question, if she would release the emails and communications within her administration regarding the decisions made about nursing homes. And she went on to never say a yes or no on that. She went on to say how sad it is and how the 1918 flu was and blah, blah, blah. And then she tossed it to her doctor, who, of course, didn't have the authority to say a yes or no. But yeah, it sort of irked me. And that's what I get out of what an earlier called Governor Witless. I just don't find her honest. I don't find her a caring person. I think I've said that before. But also regarding your prior caller, I just
So
thought,
Sandy,
boy,
let me take that first point.
Okay,
I want to continue that thread. I did not hear everything that the governor said, but let's take it as you put it. That's a concern because Governor Whitmer, as somebody who is in the Fourth Estate, the member of the media, we've been trying to improve the freedom of information laws in this state for some time so that they would apply to the governor. They do not apply to the governor right now or to the legislature, to the House or the Senate for that matter. We've been trying to open those records up, and Governor Whitmer has said that she favored making more records available. So anytime she's asked, can you make records available? And she doesn't say, I'm working on it. That's something we should be concerned about because she has made a commitment to try and improve openness, improve transparency. And regardless of how you feel about what may be in those records, or regardless how you feel about how she's handled this pandemic, we should be able to see the inner workings of government so that we can go back and say, oh, this is why they did this, or, oh, they shouldn't have done that, or, oh, they did this knowing it was a mistake, or maybe even, and sometimes this happens, wow, they really were thinking and they did a good job. I don't know if that happens a ton of times, but let's leave the possibility out there. Sandy, your second point real quick so we can get to another caller.
That's okay. I'll let you go to someone else. Thank you.
Okay, Sandy, thanks for weighing in. Really appreciate that perspective. Elaine in Rochester, she says she loves President Trump. I got to believe you got more in your mind than that. Let's have it, Elaine.
I do. I love Trump. And I just want to shout it to the world. I've been wanting to shout it since I knew he was running for president. And I was an elected delegate in Michigan in 2016. Okay. I was on the ballot and I became a delegate, but people were so afraid, including me to a certain extent, because all the Democratic liberals were going around protesting and dressing up like, female genitals. And it's just the world was going crazy after Trump won. And we couldn't really express how we felt about loving him. And I love him. I love him, the man that he is. I love him for the family man that he is, the businessman. He's brilliant minded. He has a lot of great ideas, and I think I stick up for him because I'm a parent as well, a woman, and strong-minded, and I have willpower, and I'm not always set on many of my convictions. I mean, I know that I hold my morals and values true to my heart, and I think that's what Trump does, and I love that about him. And because he is open-minded, he is allowed to change his mind on things. And some people think he's wishy-washy on stuff like that. And it's like, I get it. And I love him, and I think he's great for our country. And I just really wanted to just share it.
Okay. Well, thank you. I also have a call here from Stormy in Louisiana who says she loves Trump, but we're not going to take that call. I definitely appreciate hearing from you. Nick in Grosse Pointe, you're concerned about how people are tracking COVID cases. Can you make your point quickly? Because I think we got to get to traffic real quick.
Just has there been any clarity as to why the focus on cases versus morbidity and actual, whether it's death or severe incidence of the disease, or excuse me, of the virus or the effects of the virus?
Sure, I think
cases aren't viruses supposed to do that anyway?
I can answer that quickly just based on what I've heard from the mayor's press conferences here in Detroit and from what I heard the governor say and Dr. Caldoun. It's because even if you don't die, you can suffer lasting effects. If you survive coronavirus, or COVID-19, you can still be messed up for quite a while. But that's a good question. I appreciate you making your point quickly because I got to turn this over to Michael Stetz for traffic. And I think this is it for me this week, folks. I really appreciate you guys giving me a chance to share the airwaves with you. Mike and Laura keep this show top notch, so you can expect no decline in quality when I'm gone tomorrow. In fact, it'll probably even be better. But I appreciate the time we've spent together. I hope you'll look at my work at the Free Press, and maybe you'll check out my podcast, mlsoulofdetroit.com. Everybody, thank you so much. Michael Stetz, let's get people home safely, shall we? Is that Stetz? What's going on?
Oh, we're pressing the numbers at the same time.
It's for you.
Is it unemployment again, ML?
Yeah, it's the unemployment office. They said, "Hey, brother, you just got unemployed."
It's like,
I guess they're efficient with some things.
You're done on JR for the week, so you can.
The Stormy from Louisiana thing made me done on JR forever. I don't know, but
that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
She did love Trump once.
I do have to acknowledge Sandy from Troy. She was multitasking.
Oh, was she?
Well, she is this Sandy, and she was chatting on Facebook the same time she was on the phone with you.
Okay. I wondered, I thought I saw some comments on there that said, Sandy's doing a great job on the phone, and they were from Sandy on her iPad, but maybe that was a different Sandy. No, Sandy was great. And that's the first time I've ever heard somebody say, I have more points, but you know what? I'm going to let somebody else jump in. That was
very kind of her.
That's a kind of grace that we don't often encounter. So
we were like, no, you're out of points. Goodbye.
Yeah, no, she's great. That was terrific. Lot of great comments here on the stream, and I'm going to have to check this out. So what we're doing right now on StreamYard is going on Facebook too?
Facebook and YouTube.
Okay. So the people who are commenting are not logged into StreamYard with us, just their comments on Facebook or YouTube are being plugged in. Wow, that is really cool.
I know. I love it. I think it's great. And yes, Patrick, I do remember that now. Patrick also did the same thing on Frank's show with Renwick. But yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I think it's a great way to interact with people. And
no, and I think just, I think people now have a better sense of one of the reasons why I love coming and doing this, because it is a lot of fun. And it's when you can have a peek behind the scenes, you really get a good feel for not just how talented you guys are, but how much work goes into making it seem like there's no effort at all. I mean, I think if you're listening, it just it's like a Swiss watch. But meanwhile, you guys are trying to keep the springs and the gears from flying out of the back of it, which is that's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah. And I grew up, I've always loved watching radio on TV when it would be like, you watch C-SPAN stuff. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. In fact, I used to get on C-SPAN every once in a while when I worked in New Hampshire, which was, they'd give you a mug if you went on, which was kind of cool. So that was nice.
It's not quite the Omni Motel being on Oprah, but it's something.
Yeah, no, nobody got a Pontiac G6. So it's just unfortunate. But
well, it's been fun, ML. Hopefully, we get to work with you again soon.
To twerk with me? Wait a minute. What kind of show is it?
To work with you.
Guy looks up one thing on his phone, and all of a sudden he becomes a degenerate. I got to be careful here.
Camera's going down again.
You've corrupted me, yeah.
Yeah, Laura, I hope there is some plexiglass between the two of you. This guy's getting to be a heavy breather. But okay, well, hey, thank you very much. It was a crazy week news-wise with the Smith thing yesterday, and then Duggan calling a last-minute press conference. But you guys make this a lot of fun, and I really appreciate it. So keep up the great work.
A blast.
And if we do it again, that'll be a blast.
All right. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, check out the podcast. We should actually, we should do a whole podcast on WJR secrets.
A little behind the scenes, yeah.
That would be fun, but then they wouldn't be secrets.
Yeah.
We could just have your voice.
I guess that just means they can never fire us.
Well, I just want to know what's going on with that chair in Frank's studio. I want to get a black light in there. I don't know what's happening. Is that Frank? Is that Mitch? What's going on? We need some answers.
It's been no one for the last 6 months.
No, I'm always amazed that Frank's pretty big deal. Mitch, pretty big deal. I'm like, when you guys renegotiate your contract, can't somebody say, I'm sick of this ratty chair? Can't we? People are holding out for green M&Ms in their riders, and these guys are sitting in that barber chair from 1922.
Well, maybe they're like, okay, we can give you this much extra money in your contract, or you can get a new chair.
Or maybe it's a staring contest where Frank is like, I could hold out, but I think Mitch should hold out. And Mitch is like, I should hold out, but I think Frank should hold out. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Battle between them.
Yeah. You're the investigative reporter. You get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, you just find
I'm on it.
Story.
Yeah.
Next time you see me, I'll have the answers.
Yeah, we'll say, ML, what are you doing in here? Nothing. Mind your business.
That's right. Just
And
don't
then
tell
we'll
him
follow
that
you like you followed Kevin Dietz.
That's right. Yeah. Well, we never got to the bottom of that. So
we'll ask him next week. Kevin Dietz is with us next week.
Oh, is he? Good.
we'll
ask
see
him
when he
what
was
the hell-
covered.
now,
Yeah.
He doesn't know when we were following him, but ask him if he saw. What would I have been driving back then?
He's an investigative reporter. He probably
He
knew.
probably knew. He just didn't tell you. He was on to you while you were on to him.
He may have been doing some evasive driving. Ask him if he remembers a black 98 Nissan Maxima in his rearview mirror one time.
98 Nissan Maxima. Yeah, not a whole lot of those around even back then. So he would remember.
It had a machine gun turret on the top. That might help. I left that out.
He wouldn't remember.
Yeah, no. A lot of people shooting at Kevin. Okay. All right. Hey, thanks, guys. Have a great night.
All right, Emil. See you
Have a
soon.
good one, ML.
Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.